It's another edition of Tournament in a TeaBreak from Britwatch Sports, and with Love Sport Radio's tennis show co-host Anna Smith joining me.
Thank you for having me once again.
I know. We're sort of like a little distracted, so if every now and again we stop talking, it's because we're watching Andy and Feliciano Lopez playing. But anyway, it's been quite a week, or Toronto certainly was quite a week, because I feel that that's really where the US Open build-up starts.
Yeah, it's the one where kind of, I guess like you said last week, all the big players start to come back and play and start their mission for US Open. And, you know, it was interesting to see kind of how the big guns got on again, and obviously Rafa dominated once again, but it was kind of to be expected with who was in the draw, and then obviously Serena pulling out in the final. There was a bit of a turn up for the books.
It was. So let's just chat a little bit about Serena, because it looked like this was the best run she'd had for a long while. You know, I came out of that thinking, okay, this is good, and she's in a good mindset. She's fit and healthy. This looks good. This, you know, possibly we could be on for 24. And then, you know, Andreescu's run was amazing, and you know, I there's a lot of hate for her on Twitter, but I find her quite refreshing. She's not afraid to drop the odd F-bomb, you know, in her chats with the press and the like. She just doesn't care what she says, and she has a real belief that she has to, you know, even though her limbs are falling off every time she takes to the court. But nobody saw that coming. I mean, Serena did look a little... There was a bit in the warm-up, I think, where I thought, well, yeah, she's not moving that well in, like, the first game. But I thought nothing of it. And then I was looked away. And then the next thing I saw was her crying when the trainer came on. And then Andreescu, who has just learnt how to walk, comforting her, saying, oh, I know how it feels because I had loads of injuries. I've been there. It's like, girl, you're literally out of nappies. What are you talking about?
She, to be fair to her, she has had a lot of injuries, but yeah, it was just very strange, you know, in the warm-up. Yeah, she did look a bit, I don't know, just not quite herself. But then I feel like when she does the warm-up anyway, she's quite sluggish, you know, she's very relaxed, brings out the one-handed backhands, and then, you know, you can never judge anything from Serena's warm-ups, but yeah, it was just a bit strange, and obviously she was very upset, and then when Bianca went over and spoke to her, like she was like a 35-year-old as well, you know, who'd had God knows how many injuries, but it was quite nice to see, to be fair. Obviously Serena's probably an idol of hers and someone she's massively looked up to, so, you know, for her to go over and to kind of say that and be very supportive is really nice to see. And then obviously her winning a home tournament, another massive title as well, can we say? 2 massive titles, yeah. And it's kind of, she's been injured so much as well this year, to come out of almost nowhere and just kind of like a couple of tournaments back in and all of a sudden pick up the title. You're just like, this is crazy.
She's played like 11 matches or something since Indian Wells. And at Indian Wells, she was just, you know, a force of nature. Yeah, she's 19 years old and she's won 2 Premier Mandatories.
That's quite scary already.
With no limbs.
Well, yeah, and hardly having any match practice as well. You know, you dread to think what's going to happen when she actually gets a full run of training and tournaments and stuff, and what she can produce is scary, and she's going to be a force to be reckoned with for a long time to come.
Yeah, I mean, it amused me. There's so much like Twitter hate for her because I think she's so in your face and in your grill, and of course there's that famous sort of comment from a very disgruntled Angie Kerber where she was just like, you know, you're a real drama queen, and then afterwards she had to kind of backtrack. But, you know, you can understand Kerber's frustration because no matter, you know, and Kerber can run everything down all day long, and it just kept coming back and back and back. You know, she's got a lot of variety. I mean, it amuses me that her and Bouchard are quite friendly, because there are also a lot of people that are like kind of anybody but Bouchard to win anything. But they're quite a chummy pair. But she's everything that Bouchard isn't. She's got variety. She's got... I think Bouchard always had that self-belief, but, you know, but...
Not anymore, she doesn't.
Well, quite. But Andreescu's the full package. She's got the shots, she's got the power, and, you know, she's got the brazenness to carry it off where Bouchard tried that Wimbledon to be so kind of, look at me, I've arrived, and then Kvitova just took her to the woodshed.
Yeah, but I think Bouchard's run to the final was a bit of a shock, whereas you kind of see Andreescu having a bit more longevity. Just she has the whole package, she does have that variety, and she's so strong. I mean, the size of her for an 18, 19-year-old is phenomenal. She must have had a really good strength and conditioning coach for a long time to kind of be able to be in that shape. And once she can get rid of these niggles and kind of little things that she's had problems with, then I think we found one of the dominating forces in women's tennis.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting when she finally sort of gets herself together and gets an injury-free year. Look out, world.
Even an injury-free couple of months.
Yeah,
I think if she could stay injury-free for the rest of this year.
Well, she was sensible in dropping Cincy. Because obviously she went to Miami and then had to pull out, I think, very early on. And this time she dropped Cincy, which is a very good thing. So yeah, I really worry about what she's going to inflict on the women's tour, I think.
I know. It's exciting times ahead, though, I think, with all the young ones coming through. And, even you look at Osaka and Ash Barty, and they're not even old, sort of their early 20s and mid-20s, and they're going to dominate as well. So it is a really exciting time, I think. And again, it's going to be that unpredictable women's tour because there's going to be so many good players coming through. And I think the strength and depth of women's tennis at the moment is phenomenal and stronger than it probably ever has been.
No, I agree. I think it's exciting times. It always frustrates me when people are like, oh, we want a golden age like the men. It's like, no, we really don't. We really don't. We're perfectly happy with having different slam champions and people jockeying for number one. I think one person dominating isn't great, as we've seen.
No, but we obviously have had that over the sort of last 15 years with Serena, and I suppose Venus started it off kind of to an extent, but it is quite nice having the variety. I guess in the men's game they've been blessed with having sort of 3 or 4 guys who have been able to share the titles, whereas on the women's Serena was kind of winning everything, so there wasn't really much variety. But nowadays, as we see, it seems there's a new winner every week, and it is good for the game, and fans are knowing different players, which is quite nice, rather than having just fans just solely focusing on one player. I think it's good to get more players in the spotlight. I think it can only be good for the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. Talking of the old guard, Nadal did his usual, I'm going to take a long break, I'm going to come back and I'm going to win and look like a dominating force in Canada, which he was.
Fifth title, I think it was, or something crazy like that. You don't even realise how many times these guys are winning tournaments, and he's one of the rare players that can actually do it at both of them. There's like players that do well at Toronto and suck at Montreal, or vice versa. And he came in as the defending Montreal champion or Toronto champion, and then won at Montreal, wherever it was. I once got told off by Andy by sort of saying, "Oh, it's all Canada, it's all the same thing." He's like, "Oh, I don't know that I would say that if I were you." Probably not. Maybe not when you're in Canada. Maybe if you're outside.
Luckily, I was in Cincinnati at the time.
Okay, then you're alright. Say whatever you want.
But yes, do we think that this is a sign of things to come? Do we think that he is going to be a force to be reckoned with, or do we think he just took advantage of what was effectively a weak draw because the other two of the big three weren't there?
I think that we can never count him out. He's Nadal, for God's sake. He's won 18 slams and obviously proven that he can do it on every single surface. So, time and time again, he's proven that he can come back after having a prolonged period of rest and training and then come out and win Masters Thousands, Grand Slams, things like that. So, you definitely can't count him out. But again, I think with New York, it's going to be one of the top 3 is going to win. I just don't see how anyone, potentially one guy could have a great match, but I don't see them backing it up. That's the thing. And then you've got Nadal, Federer, or Djokovic to get through if one of them gets... So,
wait, are you just making a prediction there?
I mean, I'm giving a vague prediction. I'm not specifying one name exactly, but like a general observation. But yeah, I mean, predicting probably one of the top 3, but that's hardly really a prediction, is it, in the men's game?
What gets me, I think, is up until he won Roland Garros, I'd never even realised just how close he was to catching Federer. Even though you see the numbers and you just think, 70, yeah, whatever. And then suddenly, when it was like 18 and he's 2 away, you start thinking to yourself, well, geez, that's a US Open and an Australian Open. And then he's right up there with Federer.
And then he could surpass him at the French
Yeah.
Open.
And well, he will surpass him at the French
Yeah.
Open. So, I for the first time in a long while now, I think actually, yeah, you are a force to be reckoned with in terms of this whole greatest of all time. Although in my mind, Serena's always going to be the greatest of all time because she's got more than the guys. But that'll open a whole can of worms.
Yeah. Also, Djokovic is slowly creeping up there, isn't he? He's on 16. You don't quite realise he's won that many, and then all of a sudden he's 4 behind Roger, and you're thinking, if he does one of
2
his
behind Rafa. So.
Yeah, if he does one of his incredible years again and sort of gets 3 out of the 4 slams, and he does that for the next couple of years, like he could be catching Serena up at this rate.
I definitely think that now, and I've changed my opinion over this year. I definitely think that all 3 of them will hit 20 before they retire. I think Djokovic still will beat Federer's title, or whoever ends up with the most. I think he'll surpass them because he's just that little bit younger and probably a bit more. But yes.
But he also doesn't have the competition either. I think that I think if Roger was younger, I think he would get quite a few more. But obviously now, he's just turned 38. I think he has last week or something. So I think if he could get one more slam, I think he'd be pretty pleased. And then. Rafa, like we were saying, is probably French Open is obviously his best chance. But then there's not really anyone who's going to beat Djokovic on all the other surfaces. Kind of Rod Laver Arena has become his home, and even Wimbledon centre court is kind of becoming a firm favourite of his. And again, US Open, he just seems he's just like a brick wall. He just doesn't miss, and there's not really anyone who can dethrone him. So it wouldn't surprise me if he did end up being the holder of the most Grand Slams. But then it's that debate, is he the greatest of all time? When you look at how many titles Roger's won, he's a fan favourite, whereas Djokovic isn't so popular.
Yeah.
There's a whole debate and so many different areas to look at. So
we could actually devote a podcast just to the criteria for the greatest of all time.
Yeah, but that's without even discussing who could be. Just have the criteria first and foremost, and then try and figure out. But I think it's always going to be a personal opinion. I don't think there's, you can look at the pros and cons and say Roger's probably the best player of all time to watch in terms of, his grace, the way his shot making, whereas Djokovic is probably the greatest athlete we've ever seen play the game. His defence is just out of this world. His anticipation, his speed, his flexibility. But would people rather watch Roger or Novak? That's the thing. And do people like Roger and Novak? And that's where I guess the whole argument comes in, and that's where the whole personal opinion probably is going to be divided.
I mean, I remember watching Federer for the first time when Mum and I used to go to Wimbledon all the time, and I wasn't a huge fan of his, but like you say, he's so balletic. It is actually effortless when you watch him on. I think he was against Hewitt, and it was you can't help but be impressed. And then on the flip side of the coin, you've got the bullishness, literally, of Nadal, and then you've got Inspector Gadget, which is Djokovic, because he can just reach everything. I mean, I find him more fascinating to listen to in press. When he's on form. He's been a bit beleaguered of late with the whole ATP Council stuff, and he gets quite defensive. But in general, I prefer going to his press conferences. Although Federer's mellowed a little bit as he's gotten older, so he's quite dad-like. So it's quite funny. He'll throw in lots of dadisms, makes himself a little bit more human. But yeah, a question I get asked a lot is this big stranglehold ever going to shift? And you've even got Zverev guys, retire, why don't you? And I'm beginning to feel that they're going to get their breakthrough when one or other of them goes, and they have a bit more of a shot.
Oh, God, yeah. I just don't see anyone, even, Roger's obviously going to be the first one to retire out of the 3 of them, but it's, even then, you've still got Novak and Rafa to get through as well.
Yeah.
As, you lose one, and then you've still got those two man mountains to get through. It's, you know, especially over 5 sets as well. It's very rare that one of them isn't making, you know, semis or final every single time. It's, you're always going to have to beat one of those guys, and that's, you know, that's quite mentally challenging for someone, especially the younger guys who haven't made it through to those stages of Grand Slams before. To have to take one of those guys out and then potentially do it again in the final is still a huge mountain to climb, but it's going to be, I think they're still young-ish. They're still, you know, 31, 32. They've still got a good couple of years ahead of them, and I think it's just about these other guys upping their game a little bit more, you know. I think it is kind of unprecedented what Roger, Rafa and Novak have done, and just their sheer consistency and sheer desire to win week in, week out. And it's something that I think the younger guys can learn from, and something they're going to have to improve. And until they do that, then the stranglehold on men's tennis is going to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. Consistency is key, I think, and that's something that we'll see how it washes out in New York. Well, we'll be able to dig in a lot more when we get to next week, where all the elite people obviously will be practicing at NYC, and we'll have like Winston-Salem and the Bronx as well. So yeah, we'll have one more shot to look at the lesser mortals as they try and build up their stuff. But in terms of talking about mortals, what about the miracle man that is Andy Murray and his comeback to singles? Did you think he was going to come back so soon? And, you know, just thoughts on his decision at least to not give it a shot at New York?
I wasn't surprised that he came back in Cincinnati. You know, having listened to him in press and hear how positive he was speaking about how practice had been going, how comfortable he felt and things like that, I think, you know, it wasn't a surprise in the slightest. I think, you know, he was probably chomping at the bit to get out there, and, you know, seeing all the other guys and being around these tournaments now, having played doubles. I think he's played sort of 4 or 5 tournaments. He's got to be like really raring and ready to go. So it was really nice to see him back out there, but I think it is a smart decision not to play US Open. I think, you know, potentially playing Winston-Salem next week if, you know, things hold up and he feels okay. I think that would probably be a smart decision, and then obviously playing doubles and mix, and then looking to go to Asia, I think, after that, he said. So, you know, what we talked about, whether he could be smart about his scheduling and his desire to want to play, I think we've seen here that he has been smart about it, and he's kind of focusing on that longevity again. I think that's a really good thing to see.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've watched his movement quite closely. You know,
I think as did everyone.
Yeah,
going over it with a fine tooth comb.
I think most people are like, you know,
is there a limp?
Yeah.
Can we see anything wrong?
No, I mean he still does his muttering and chuntering to his box, so, you know.
He still has the walk as well. He still walks a bit like a pigeon, but I think that but you kind of, I think it's just been because he's been in pain for so long. It's very hard to get out of that pattern once you've kind of walked a certain way and had to get used to doing something different. I think it's very hard for him to get out of that pattern, but, you know, he's obviously said that he's not in pain anymore, which is obviously great, but he's always one of those guys who looks like there's something wrong with him even if he's completely fine. And we've kind of got used to that over the years.
But yeah, he's I mean, I think what I took away the most was, I mean, it was a terrible start. It was like a double fault to start with, and then he pretty much broke himself. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay, fine, this is perhaps a little bit rusty. I think his timing improved in both sets for a spell, but I think what he's lacking is that consistency of match practice and having to cover the whole court and not just be like, yours.
Yeah,
I half expect him to do what most doubles players do when they're like at club level, or, you know, even below at club level, which is where I am, where you like, no, yours. Oh, you missed it? Oh, okay.
We've all been guilty of that, haven't we?
So, but yeah, he looked like he hadn't pulled up. You know, I've got friends in since he was saying that, you know, he seemed very confident that that this was the right step. And what was interesting was there was an interview on Prime where he said that he'd set himself a number of markers for, you know, his speed, you know, shots.
I think I saw that.
Yeah,
as well.
whether he could rotate through shot, because stuff that we, you know. And Sam Smith came up with something very key that I hadn't really thought about, because she was saying, you know, don't forget that major muscles have been cut to get to fix this. So you've got to have all of those knitting together, and they don't just knit together in like a matter of months and then everything's okay. Sure, they knit together, but then you've got to retrain them all because you've actually cut into the muscle. I didn't even sort of think about it. I noticed that he was a lot leaner because he's lost a lot of that muscle mass, but it didn't actually occur to me that, you know, he's going to have to retrain that whole limb from scratch, basically.
Yeah, but you also get the scar tissue that builds up as well, and that kind of sticks down. I've unfortunately had too many experiences of that, so it's getting rid of that scar tissue as well, and that's, you know, that's another thing that can be a bit of an issue. But, you know, if what he was saying was when he was deciding about whether to come back, he was talking about all the fitness markers that he had kind of ticked, and him and his team had, you know, got through these rigorous testing processes and said, look, you have to be able to do this and this before you can. And obviously there was no point in him going on court before he could hit those markers, because it would just be a waste of time for him. You know, he's not, it's so hard on that men's tour to win matches, and if he's not 100% fit, then, you know, he's not going to be able to do any damage in these draws, and I don't think he'd be doing himself justice either, and probably wouldn't enjoy it. And he probably didn't get off to the best of starts yesterday, like you said. Maybe a slight understatement. But I think he'll be so happy to have made it back out onto the court. But it's a smart decision in terms of longevity. And I think I was reading somewhere as well that he was saying that it's likely that his peak fitness will probably not be until the Australian Open next year, because he's got a lot more training and obviously matches to get through and things like that. So I think we've got another sort of 4 or 5 months before we're going to see him in peak condition.
Well, it's comforting that he's saying that, because at Wimbledon he was trying to set an expectation that it could be at Wimbledon again before he's ready to be playing at that kind of level. So if he's brought that back to Australia, that is a real good sign. But hey, look, I mean, I'm just happy that the guy can tie his shoelaces and play with his kids and go walk the dogs and do the normal stuff that, you know, that we take for granted, that you forget that, you know, if you can't do that without pain, you I think that's why he has this, I mean, he's still chuntering to his box, but he still has that kind of love for the game so much that he was just desperate to come back no matter what. It's good to see him back again. So we shall see. We shall see. We might make a doubles player out of him yet. It was.
Wow, yeah, you never know.
On the flip side, though, so Jo Konta played first match, and she did look rusty in Toronto. And Toronto's never been a good place for her. I think she's always done better in Montreal. There's something about Toronto that's a bit of a bugbear for her. And so it was again. She lost to Diana Yastremska in it was a pretty tight match, but just too rusty. And then she lost again to Rebecca Pettersson, and it was a good match. I mean, she was caught napping in the first set and was 1-4 down. Came back a little bit, but the set was gone. She did her usual right. I shall show you. And came
sleeves up and
she literally did actually. She upped her game. Her serve was a lot better, and I've often found that when her serve is good, everything else falls into place. And Pedersen had her father out for a pep talk, and then just fallen off a cliff straight afterwards. But then all of a sudden, in the third set, she gave herself a couple of come-ons, was 4-1 up. Jo did really well to get it back to 5-5. And then just got pipped at the edge. And again, I just feel that's a little bit of lacking of sort of match practice and closing it out, and maybe a bit of a hangover from like the 2 big losses at Wimbledon and Roland Garros. I don't know.
Yeah, just maybe a little bit, just not being brave enough in those crucial points. And I guess that's maybe what she potentially didn't do in those 2 losses as well, that she did maybe just wasn't quite brave enough, and maybe that is playing on her mind again, I'm not sure. But with Jo, she can always turn it around. That's the thing. She's got so much belief in herself and the tennis that she can bring to the court that, I think she's playing the Bronx next week.
I believe she's down for it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether she decides she wants to play and try and get some more matches, or if she wants to have a week's preparation and get to Flushing early and get used to the conditions. But I think it'd be good for her to go and try and get a few matches under her belt and see if she can just string a couple of matches together, because I think if she can, then I think she can do well at New York. You know, she's had success there before and has played well. So she does have good memories of feeling good. I remember a couple of night matches she played on Arthur Ashe, and she's just played incredible. So, you know, she knows she can play well there. And again, it's just a couple of matches. I think it's pretty much synonymous with the women's game. You know, women get through a couple of matches and all of a sudden they can go on a run no matter who it is. So I wouldn't be too concerned with Jo.
No, I'm not. I don't feel as concerned because that was a more competitive match, and it wasn't that she wasn't competitive in Toronto, but she did look rusty. Timing was off, and just looked a little bit like slow in the legs. Whereas this, like you say, the second set she was like, right, I'll show you. Rolled up her sleeves, and then came back really, really well. And I'm sure for those people that just absolutely hate the positive framing that she does around her matches, they're probably pulling their hair out thinking, why aren't you beating some qualifier? I mean, that was it. I was watching BBC Breakfast and they were saying, she lost to a qualifier. I thought, what you've got to remember about a qualifier is they've had loads more time to get used to these courts and get some match practice under their legs. You can practice all you like on the Cincy courts, but it's nothing compared to actually playing a match.
But also, I think people forget how good these qualifiers are. We're not talking about someone who's 1,000 in the world here. I'm not sure what Rebecca's ranking is, but
she's not the top 100, I think. Yeah. 1893, something like that.
Yeah, she's an incredible player. She's got a big kick serve, a big forehand that's going to kind of rear off on these American hard courts, and that's tough to play against. And once she's feeling confident having had matches in qualifying, so I think people can overlook that sometimes. I think she's playing a qualifier. It's easy. She's going to win first round, and then when she does, then everyone's just like, "Oh my god, what's going on?"
Yeah.
So I think people need to maybe have a little bit more perspective.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, and also these courts I think get resurfaced every year, and they play with the pen balls that fluff up like a hamster that's been put in a tumble dryer. I mean, they just come out as big puff balls. And with that forehand, the ball just rips through the air. It's very bouncy out here from what I remember watching matches at Cincy. The ball just flies.
That'll suit Rebecca's forehand because
she's got a monster forehand.
I played against her and I played doubles with her as well, and you want her on your side of the court ripping those forehands. You don't want to be against her. So, that wasn't an easy match at all, and it wasn't. Obviously, people think it's probably a bad loss, but what Rebecca can bring to the court, I think it was good for her to get that time on the match court as well, and I think probably will benefit her going into next week as well.
Or getting a 3-setter under her belt.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe the match in Toronto went a little bit quickly. I don't think it was obviously as tight as this one, so it'd be good to get the matches or the match time on court, but obviously she want the win, but hopefully next week she can just get more match practice and get a little bit of confidence.
We shall see. What about the other? Let's have a quick roundup of the other Brits. And the other news that came out this week, of course, somewhat surprising, is that Dan Evans and David Felgate have split up. And David Felgate put his sort of eggs in the Evans basket after he came back from his drugs ban, when probably nobody really wanted to touch him. And his comeback has been little short of miraculous.
Phenomenal,
phenomenal. It's been a great comeback for him, and I've always said that his talent has never been in doubt. He is a very talented tennis player. It's just whether his mind was in the game. So I fear for him a little bit, because he's not done badly on the American swing as well, and he had that great grass court season. I don't know. I think there's something more to it. It just makes no sense before a slam.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there could be potentially more to it than we will find out.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason, because he has been with him every step of the way since the comeback, and they've had so much success this year. It is a little bit strange, I think, and yeah, there must be something that's kind of gone on behind the scenes or something, or maybe he's got someone else lined up, because I can't imagine Dan really wanting to travel on his own. I'm not sure he's the biggest fan of travelling. I think that's probably been an issue in the past with being away from home. It's something he's not really enjoyed, and that's potentially why he's had some problems and things like that. So it would be interesting to see who's going to be in his box at US Open, and yeah, I don't know. I think there's something a bit fishy about that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Leon Smith had said that a long while back that it was always difficult to get him out to travel. He doesn't like that aspect. He doesn't like being away from home. And also, I think at Wimbledon he was sort of opening up that how Felgate really works him hard. I mean, he's trained with like Federer a couple of times just to see what it's like to and being like Federer's hitting partner and pal. So for him for that to end and that kind of influence and motivator to end is a little worrying at such a pivotal point in his comeback.
Yeah, I don't know. It is an interesting one, and I think maybe something else will come out of it, and we'll hear a little bit more. But yeah, I think it'll be good to see who is with him. I don't know if Leon potentially will be with him at Flushing Meadows and be in his box, or I feel like there's got to be someone, because I don't feel like he's a guy who
can be left alone.
Yeah, I do feel bad saying that, but
no, I agree with you.
But I do feel like he does need someone there to sort of help him out and kind of lead him down the right path without really giving him that push, making him think it's all his own idea. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, and I hope it doesn't derail all the good work that he has done, because like you said, it's been phenomenal, his comeback. The amount of wins he's got, I think I read somewhere it was about 46 wins this year, which is crazy already. Yeah. And it does seem like he hasn't peaked yet, and there's still does feel like there's a lot more to come. I think he's shown so much potential, especially against these top guys, and even last week having set points against Nadal in that first set, he shows he can play with the big boys and has got a game to worry them. So you don't want this to become an issue and derail it, which would be a shame.
Well, of course, later on today we've got Edmund playing Medvedev. A chance for a little bit of revenge after being splattered completely.
Yeah.
In Montreal. I mean, that was, what was it? 3 games, 59 minutes, not even an hour on court. I mean, that's the kind of conversation we have about Tomic and Kyrgios. not Kyle Edmund.
No, true, but I think hopefully Kyle gave a little bit more effort than those two guys do sometimes. But yeah, it was a weird one. He had that good victory over Kyrgios in the first round. You thought, we're making progress, but I think that's kind of been the thing with Kyle's whole year.
Yeah.
We have one good victory and we think, we've turned a corner, and then the next round is it's a bit lackluster, and it just can't quite seem to gain that momentum. And yeah, I don't know, there just seems to be something lacking with Kyle at the moment. I'm not sure if it's confidence. I don't know whether it's just a lack of training that he manages to put in for a prolonged period of time, or I don't know if it's a mental block. I'm not really sure. It just seems to be a bit of a struggle at the moment for Kyle.
Yeah, he's had a couple of injuries, and in France he was very very cryptic with his I'm not going to tell you what's wrong because it's my body, and it's like, well, we're just asking whether there's an issue with the knee. He kind of hinted that hopefully you don't go down the surgery route. He's pulled the ripcord a couple of times with injuries, and you just wonder what he's sort of trying to protect. But yeah, I'm more worried actually about Edmund as our British number one going into New York than I am about Joe.
I probably would be as well. I think I don't know, with Kyle it's a hard one, because he did the same thing at Wimbledon. He had a decent first round win, and then 2 sets to love up against Fernando, and then it all sort of went a bit Pete Tong, really, didn't it? After that, he had that little slip and he just couldn't quite seem to recover after that. And it wouldn't surprise me if he got through that first round and then sort of capitulated a little bit in that second round. But I don't know, it feels like there's so much potential there that's kind of being wasted at the moment.
I mean, he's a hard worker. You can't fault. Well, certainly a few years back, you couldn't fault his work ethic. But he was going to Andy Murray's training blocks. Flailing around and as knackered as Andy was. Being worked really hard. So, his work ethic has never really been questioned, as opposed to maybe say Dan in his earlier bad days.
But he does seem to live, breathe and sleep tennis. I think Kyle does, in comparison to a lot of the other guys. I think, I don't know, maybe he just needs to relax a little bit more. Possibly. I don't know. That's just seems to maybe that he just needs a little bit of a change, but I'm not sure what it is that he can change at the moment.
Well, I think he was derailed when he lost his coach, Frederick Rosengren, and I think that caught him by surprise because in Indian Wells he was sort of saying, normally you're the one that parts company with the coach, and I just got this. Yep, I've had enough, and I'm retiring. And it's like you're not even going to see him in the tour with somebody else that you could go and ask him a question. He's gone for good, and that seems to really throw him. And yeah, he's just not really been the same player since.
No, he hasn't. There's just been something that's been missing, and they haven't quite found that spark again. And it could be the coach. It's once you build a rapport with a coach and you feel comfortable, you feel safe, and they can motivate you. It's hard finding that with someone else, and I don't know if he's necessarily been able to. So, it is a shame because he obviously was starting to fulfill the potential that he had showed, and it is a shame. But hopefully he can just get on a run at one of these tournaments and just get a bit of momentum going, and I think that could change things. But this year has been a little bit of a write-off, hasn't it?
Just a little bit. So we've got obviously Cincinnati we've got Federer back. I mean, today is stacked. I'm just thinking, right, I haven't got anything to get up for tomorrow, so I could actually just sit upstairs. Although my skybox upstairs gave me a fright because it's decided that it's too far away from the network, and every now and again it will just decide, no, I'm not going to play anything. It's like, don't make me come and sit down here in my pajamas and watch tennis. But yeah, it's a stacked draw since he's actually done very well. We've got Djokovic back, we've got Federer back. Dominic Thiem actually retired in his match, I think. In fact, there've been a lot of retirements today.
But we have Serena back as well, which is a little bit of a shock. I wasn't expecting her to be playing here, that's for sure.
No, and that's like super late on tonight, so it'll be interesting to see how she goes.
I suppose it's given her the most time to recover. She's had the latest start she possibly can. She's literally not before 8:30 tonight, I think.
And it's not a bad start for her. Serena Diaz, who's okay, but shouldn't be an issue for her. But then Diaz will just come out. I mean, I'm sure she's played Serena before.
Yeah, I remember.
Where she's been like a lamb to the slaughter.
Yeah, I think I remember them playing a couple of times, but I remember Diaz really going for it one time, and it was a pretty close battle they had. But if Serena is recovered from those spasms that she had, you would think that it should be a fairly comfortable with the way she was playing last week. But then, it does really depend on how much practice she's been able to get and get used to these courts in Cincinnati, because they will be different to what she played on last week. So, I'm a little bit surprised, but it will definitely be interesting to wake up tomorrow and see what's happened.
So who do we think is going to... Right, let's... Play your cards right time.
Oh, I just saw Ash is playing Sharapova.
Yes.
Oh, I did that.
Well, yes. I'm more surprised that Sharapova actually won a match, to be absolutely honest with you.
I saw the same and I was a bit like, oh my God. Even Sabalenka getting a victory. She hasn't been doing that well
One
recently.
good thing to see back is that Petra is back, Petra Kvitova, after that because the weird thing about Kvitova was she lost to Jo in Wimbledon and then didn't bother with her press obligations.
It's unlike her.
Which is very unlike her. And I know I'm an honorary Czech. And I love the Czech journalists. So I toddled across the bridge to find out if they knew anything, and they were like, "You know the same as us. The team were here, and Petra wasn't. So we don't really know what's happened, but she's back and testing it out. So that's and that's not an easy match against Marisa Sakkari, to be absolutely honest with you. When you're coming back off injury. Sloane Stephens, I was going to say Sloane Stephens won a match, but she didn't. She had a bye. I was almost excited. She's got Pit and Sabre, which is not great for her.
No, but again, Sloane can just turn it on, and she could easily wipe the floor with her if
she so pleases.
If she goes all guns blazing, then she could easily win that one. But then she could easily get frustrated by it and lose. So I'm not really putting a prediction out there again. Shock horror.
What about this one? Burtons and Williams. That's quite a tasty little number. Oh, well, for the benefit of people listening.
I forget that people can't see that I'm pointing to the TV that's shown
yes.
now.
Oh, wow. And actually, Williams is 5-2 up against Burtons. Okay, so maybe that's not going to be quite as tasty as we thought then. And then Halep still to get going. We don't know who she's going to face. And then Naomi Osaka. Now it'll be interesting to watch how she does. She does seem a lot more relaxed though. She did seem a little happier in Toronto.
It's quite nice to see, wasn't it? Just a little bit more calm, and hopefully she can kind of keep that going. But we were saying that hopefully now she feels a little bit more comfortable back on the hard courts, and she can just relax and enjoy her tennis a little bit more. And I think once she does that, I think that's when she can play her best tennis. But you know, she obviously hasn't had as many matches probably over the recent months as she would want. But you know, this is definitely a chance for her to gain a bit of form.
Yeah. I mean that again that was a good win for Serena over her, and it was a good match. But she seemed perfectly fine at the net. There didn't seem to be any kind of crisis of confidence. And then of course on the men's side, well, Nadal has sensibly pulled out of here. Cue a lot of people on Twitter saying, "Well, how dare he? Why now that Roger Federer's in that section of the draw, it's not fair." And people needed a bit of education that once the main draw started, you can't actually then shift people around. You can when the draw hasn't started yet, but once the actual draw has started, you can't suddenly just pluck Roger Federer from Novak Djokovic's section of the draw and pop him at the bottom.
No, don't think it quite works like that.
No, but it was quite entertaining to watch Twitter explode in fury.
Standard. People
but yes, it's not a fantastic draw for him because he is in that half of the draw with Djokovic, who of course got over the line for the first time at Cincy, and that collected the full Masters set. The other thing that ground our gears was people calling it the Golden Masters. It's like, it's not a golden anything. It's not an Olympic thing. It's just a full set of Masters. Stop adding golden to it.
It's quite an impressive thing to put on your resume, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Add to the countless other things that he has as well.
But do we see anybody other than Djokovic ending up in the final?
Probably
not. Well, the only person that can stop him really is Federer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Federer kind of comes back after having had a little bit of time off. And I saw Djokovic was playing doubles yesterday, so at least he's got a practice match under his belt to get used to the course. But he doesn't have an easy first round against Querrey. That's a tricky first round to get back in, and then potentially Isner. God, good luck returning those serves. But But if somebody can do it, it's going to be him. Yeah, most definitely. But I think you would think that he's going to come through that, and even if he doesn't, I think
he'll be all right.
He's not going to be too fussed about it, is he really?
No, and I think with Djokovic, once he finally got that win, that was like a big monkey off his back, because Cincinnati just seemed to be the one thing that was just denying him.
But I just saw that Kyrgios is in his quarter of the draw. If Kyrgios can pull his finger out and they can...
That'd be a bit of needle though.
Yeah, no, it would be. It'd be good to see though, because Kyrgios always lifts his level when he plays against the big guys. So that would be an interesting match to watch. So we've got no team. So what do we think about the youngsters? So we've got Tsitsipas and Zverev. Well, Tsitsipas is in Djokovic's section, and Zverev is at the top of the other section. To be honest, I was quite surprised that Felix Auger-Aliassime lost. I thought fairly comfortably as well. I didn't really see that coming, and they get Cilic just not really finding any form either. No, he's really struggling at the moment, and normally he quite likes these American hard courts, and obviously being a former US Open champion, but again, he's another one who doesn't seem to have any form at the moment, and I feel like the bottom half of the draw is there for the taking, really. Yeah, it's incredibly lopsided this year. And you've got to bear in mind at this stage, a lot of the elite players do have the fact that it's like, well, lose here early, go straight to Flushing. Yeah, it doesn't really matter too much to them, because for the most part they know. I mean, someone like Djokovic, Roger, Rafa. For the most part, they're not going out the first couple of rounds, are they really? So no. In New York, they're going to get sort of 2-3 matches that first week, and then the business end really starts for them, and it's usually pretty comfortable. So, they're not really that fussed about this week, and it is a chance for maybe one of the other guys to have a good run, especially in that bottom half of the draw. Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if Zverev can really step up, because that could be a potentially season-changing tournament if he could get a good run going and take some form going into US Open.
I mean, let's be honest, really, it's Zverev and Nishikori that it's there for the taking.
They're the standout ones in the bottom half, but would you count on either of those two getting through? Probably.
Nope.
Probably not really.
Nope. No, that gif of it's Homer Simpson disappearing back into the hedge with no. Yeah, that's me.
I think you could be right.
Well, we'll come back and have a look at how our predictions went next week. So next week obviously is the lighter week. So Winston-Salem and the Bronx for the lesser mortals, or people that do feel that they need a little bit more practice, and Andy Murray, of course. So that's a big coup for Winston-Salem to that'll get bums on seats in a tournament that probably suffers from the fact that it is the week before the US Open and all the big names will give it a miss.
It's tough. It is tough for those tournaments the week before, because the big guys and the big girls don't tend to want to play. They would rather get used to the conditions at Flushing and kind of get that weeks of good preparation in, and the other people need it for rankings points. It's in that sense it's good because there will be a lot of players playing, but obviously in terms of the big high profile names, they just never play the week before, and it is smart, because if they're looking to go 2 weeks of the US Open, they don't want any additional fatigue from the week before. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what the draw throws up next week and see who's going to come through. It'll be interesting for one of the kind of lesser known name players per se to have a good week there, and that could kickstart their US Open.
Okay, well, we'll have a look next week. We'll be back next week, and also we'll be building up our own, ramping up to the US Open. So you have, of course, been listening to Ros Satar
and Anna Smith.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.